So this right here is the 2021 Toyota Venza. It's back, and it's better. We last saw the Venza in 2015 when it was discontinued here in the US. We only had it for about 6 years before they decided there wasn't enough sales or interest to really keep it going. They didn't quite find the correct niche in the CUV market that was ever growing at the time. So if you're somehow familiar with the Japanese market, you may know that this is actually here as a Venza and over there as a Harrier. And the Harrier is a bird of prey from Asia that is very sleek and elegant. I think that's what they were going for with the design here. It's a very, sleek nose or beak on the front. And it's interesting because we actually had another rebranded Harrier here before. Around the turn of the century, in the late 90s, we got the Lexus RX, which is what they had as the Harrier over there. Are you confused yet? Because I am. But all that aside, this is the new Toyota Venza, and if you had taken the badges off, I almost would have guessed it would be a Lexus. It looks the part, it has great materials, great finishes. But let's take a closer look at the front. You see these very interesting LEDs that kind of run into the central grille. Those are the daytime running lights, or also the turn indicators. I just think that they're very nice and flowy, if that's a word. Very good styling decision on the front end. And we also have this kind of fake grille. It looks the part, but it's fake, kind of like some of the EV grills we see nowadays. And I think that also looks good, even though it's fake. They added some interesting, design in it with almost like the 3D look, even though it's a very flat gloss finish. And you have some chrome, of course, on the middle and bottom of the bumper. You have these interesting fog blanks. I think perhaps the top end Harrier in Japan had fog lights, and they didn't send us that top end here. Plus, of course, you have the blue Toyota badge used on their hybrid vehicles. But again, if that wasn't there, I maybe could have mistaken this for a Lexus. This new Venza is actually shared with the Toyota RAV4 hybrid. It's built on the same platform, same hybrid technology and all-wheel drive. So it's very interesting that they kind of reused that, but for a more luxury look versus the rugged off-road kind of style that the RAV4 went. I think it certainly has its place, and it's interesting that it's only hybrid because I think that's what most people in this market would be looking for. You have the front camera down here, a couple sensors. You have, of course, the grille, which interestingly most of this is blocked, and then you have some blocked fog light housings. It makes me wonder if a higher trim in Japan actually did have fog lights. And then coming around the side, you do have functional vents. They may look fake, but there are actually holes back here. I don't know where that air leads, so that's interesting. But you can also see this gorgeous body line extending all the way from the front up to the back, right below the windows, back to that rear taillight. I think that is a gorgeous design cue. And then you have 19-inch chrome, kind of metallic chrome wheels. I actually like them. I'm not usually a chrome kind of wheel person, but with this car, they do look really nice. And that same chrome style that you saw on the front applies to the windshield surrounds here, and that, along with the wheels and some chrome on the back, just really tie it all in very nicely. This exterior color, by the way, is coastal gray metallic. There are a number of other color options along with interior options, but this is personally how I would spec it. I think it is a gorgeous car. I love the way the manufacturers are messing with the gray color palette. It almost looks blue in certain lights, but it just looks mean, it looks aggressive, and I am a huge fan. But let's follow that design element around to the back and see what's going on back there. So coming around to the back of the Venza, you see the very distinct body line that comes up to these taillights. Very pronounced, very cool, very sporty, very sleek. That's very much the Toyota and Lexus way. What's interesting though is there are no turn indicators along with these lights. That's where you would expect them to be. They're actually way down here, right above the bumper. I don't really know why, unless they were so obsessed with the styling that they decided to do that. I don't think that's the best idea. I've had people say they didn't even see my turn indicators, especially if you're seeing, a couple cars in front of you. I don't know if people would know to look down there. So that's kind of an interesting choice. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but we take what we can get, right? And the chrome continues in the back here. And I really do like the fact that the tailpipes are not fake like some other people have on their CUVs. They're there. They look fine. They're functional. So this bad boy has a 2.5 liter inline 4 engine mixed with 3 electric motors, 2 in the front, 1 in the rear, giving you the full electric all-wheel drive assistance. It gives you a total output of about 219 horsepower, and that's honestly enough. I always wish for a bit more, I guess being an enthusiast driver, but it's been plenty for what I've asked of it up here at altitude. I'm sure it's even better down at sea level. The original Venza had a inline 4 or a V6. The V6 did make more power than this, but I think with the electric assistance from this hybrid, it actually works better than the original higher end one. Another interesting thing is that this only comes as a hybrid. Not like the RAV4 where you have the ICE version, an internal combustion engine, or the hybrid, or the Prime, which is the plug-in hybrid. This is just hybrid and all-wheel drive. That's it. That's the only option. And honestly, I'd say that's one of the best options. Until they implement a plug-in hybrid version of this, if it succeeds enough to do so, that's probably what you would expect from it. So that's about it with the exterior. As you can see, they are blurring the lines between Toyota and Lexus somewhat. And let's see if the interior has the same story. To lock your Venza, you do have the signature Toyota double thumb area, which you just lay in your thumb or fingers, and it will also fold in the mirrors. And then to unlock, you simply stick your hand back in there, and out the mirrors come. Let's take a look inside. Overall, a very nice interior. I've really been pretty impressed with it, with a few minor quirks here and there. Some interesting features here with this, whatever this material is. It's kind of matte finish, but really shows fingerprints pretty strongly. Of course, you have the mirror selector. This button allows you to fold the mirrors in or leave it on automatic, and then your seat memory settings. These are full adjustable electric seats on both driver and passenger, so that's impressive. So let's talk about the interior of the Toyota Venza. First of all, it's a nice place to be. I feel like the lines are starting to get blurred between Toyota and Lexus, at least with this particular vehicle. Some nice soft touches, nice places for your arms to sit. The infotainment is nice. It's got a 12.3 inch screen. That's on the limited trim. It's only an 8 inch screen on the smaller ones, which is still a decent size. And it's a very useful Toyota infotainment. The infotainment is very intuitive, but it doesn't really speak like luxurious or nice, but I guess that just depends on the user whether they care or not. And of course down here you have gloss black with no dials. Looks very clean, except it always shows dust and fingerprints, and there's no dials. I don't understand why people keep removing these from cars. They're great, everybody loves them. The RAV4 even has dials, which is a little confusing with how much is shared between that car. Instead of dials, you have this obnoxious push. So if you want to change the temperature or the volume, you just have to cycle through those. And unfortunately, it's the same up on the screen. There's no way for it to be a shortcut. You can press and hold, so that is nice. But it's annoying. It's not the end of the world, but I just wish they would have kept dials on here. They have a nice little leather piece that goes all the way into the center console, back where you have a Qi charger for your phone back in here. Down here you have the selector knob, which will give you park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then you can slop it over into sport mode and then toggle through fake gears. I mean, it is a CVT, so keep that in mind. You also have the hold right here, so if you're at a stoplight and you take your foot off the brake, this will make sure you don't creep, turns creep off. The annoying thing is that the hold comes back on every time you start the car, so keep that in mind. And then we do have the selector modes here for EV mode button right there, and then we have sport and eco. And sport mode's a little fun. It keeps the power gauge all the way to the right. And down here we have the display brightness for the gauges, and then we have automatic brights, traction control, a neat 360 view camera, which will show up on the main 12.3 inch screen, the heated steering wheel control, which is down here for some reason, not by the seat warmers on the other side, and the rear lift gate hatch. Let's check out this camera view. Would it have been too much to ask just to have it match the actual car color? I don't know. And you can oscillate it here between kind of a point of view. You can select here to be like kind of a third person view or a first person point of view. It's a really neat system. The only challenge is the cameras are not that great quality. And you can adjust, aha, that's awesome. So up here was the body color setting, and now you can choose the color of your car. But there are a lot of things you can see on the screen between the gauges. I have here a bunch of other things, and that's all controlled by this button on the steering wheel. So let's go through it, shall we? Audio controls, driving support, safety status. This has pre-collision system, parking assist, blind spot monitoring, and rear cross traffic alert. It really works pretty well. And then we have all the settings here for those features. You can turn each one individually on or off as you need. And then if you had an error message like a check engine light or something, it should pull up here. And then last we have fuel economy, or you can see your eco score, your digital speed, your range, and the EV driving ratio as a percentage. As we work our way further down, we have the nice cooled and heated seat options here. What's interesting is the cooled seats with the blue switch turn on green LEDs. The heated seats with the red switch turn on yellow. The, of course, center console here, flip that up, and you have the literal world's most useless cup holders. It even says don't put most drinks in here. But it is a nice deep carpeted center console, which, fun fact, by the way, these are also carpeted. I love that. I don't know why. It's the little things. You can just plop your AirPods case or whatever in there and it won't make a sound. But that's about it up front. Let's move to the back where there's actually a lot of interesting stuff. All right, well, that was partially a joke. There's not a whole lot going on back here. You still have the nice sunroof, which extends above the rear seats, and I do love that. But that's honestly the most exciting thing. There are a couple of vents here, which actually I don't really like. They're smooth, they feel heavy, they're nice, but they look kind of ugly, and that's the only ventilation the rear seats get directly. You have two USB ports down here with 2.1 amps of charging capability. That's good for a phone. And then the center seat here, you know, it's fine. Has a couple of cup holders, does the trick. So yeah, pretty bare bones in the back, but the windows roll down all the way. That's something else I wish all cars and CUVs had. That's fantastic. If I was a kid, I'd be thrilled. This Venza does have the all-weather mats in it. The doors all have interesting speaker grills, which actually match the strange line pattern on the key fob. So that's kind of a fun design Easter egg, if you will. And of course, one of the most important questions about the rear of most cars is how is the legroom? It's fantastic. I am 6 foot tall exactly, and the front seat is where I would have it, if not conservatively. I could have probably pushed it forward a bit more. And I still have inches in front of my knees right here. And I have a couple inches above my head, so rear legroom is not a concern at all, which I can't say for every CUV, so that impresses me for sure. I have no issues with the back, and I don't think most people will. So the back of the Venza does have a decent amount of storage space, about 28 cubic feet with the seats up, or about 55 cubic feet with the seats down. As for the spare tire, you do have a compact, so not a full size, but it actually looks pretty good as far as spares go, if that's a thing. And there's actually a bit more storage on top of the spare tire if you wanted to store additional things down there. And then of course you have the small sub for the JBL sound system. Again, not a super powerful sub, but it sounds really good. And then of course you have the privacy mat you can pull out to cover your things. When closing it, it's really interesting. There's two buttons up here. One just closes the hatch, the other one closes it and locks it. And then if for some reason you closed it without using the lock button, and then didn't walk away from your car in the hour and change that it took to close, there is another button down here that will actually lock the car, fold in the mirrors. All right, rain is coming in fast, so I will continue my journey of driving. You would kind of expect sport mode in some vehicles to stiffen the steering at least. That doesn't happen in this. It's entirely disconnected like always, just more power, which is fine. That's what it needs. Also, there goes the automatic wipers sensing the rain. They're great. They work phenomenally. But I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I love the heads-up display, giving me the speed, and I mean, honestly, that's the only truly useful part of it, I feel. Unless it recognizes that there is a given speed limit on this street, which is pretty hit and miss, actually. It does seem really quiet in here. Maybe not quite to the level of a Lexus, but this, at the same time, this probably doesn't have as much sound dampening or as thick glass. But for what it is, for a Toyota, it's probably one of the quietest ones I have driven. The driver assist features are pretty great. The radar cruise works pretty well. It senses the car in front of you and keeps a certain distance back. You can adjust that distance with 3 different parameters. I have it on the furthest right now. And it even has the lane keep assist, which works fairly well. Actually, one of the better ones I've used. It will steer for you and actually stay within the lane. Some lane keep assist actually veer into the other lane before they correct it. That's bad. This one works pretty well. It does make sure you have your hands on the steering wheel. It'll prompt you if you aren't touching it for more than a couple seconds, and that's a good safety feature. Let's knock it into sport mode and control it ourselves. So knock it over to S for selectable, and then on the dash it actually shows you which quote-unquote gear it's in. So now I'm in 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd. Wow, that really knocks up in the power band. And again, there's simulated gears because of the CVT, and it's pretty interesting which ratio it decides to choose. And I guess that is useful, has its purposes. It is shocking how similar this is to a Prius. I mean, even the noises it makes as you're braking, and then when you get to a full stop and it does that little sound, very quietly, by the way. It's fascinating. And that's not a knock on it. I actually enjoyed our Prius. We had a Prius for a couple of years, and it worked fine. I mean, this is a bit more enjoyable. It's more comfortable. The Prius we had was extremely functional. This one feels like it's more on the luxurious side of the somewhat larger Prius style crossover. What's really funny is this mirror option. You can close the mirrors while you're driving, and I don't even think there's a speed limit option for that. So that's interesting. I guess if you're going through a tunnel or something, they will close for you. That is quite nifty. That was honestly a fantastic driving experience. It's comfortable, it's quiet, it has just enough power to do just about anything I wanted. I do wish it had a bit more power on the uphill, like a turbo would be great, but you know, I can't be too choosy. It has great gas mileage. I was really impressed with that. There was a weird thing with the engine though. When it would whine, when you get to a stop, it would kind of go up in frequency, and that shift in frequency where it kind of escalates honestly sounded like emergency vehicle sirens kind of behind me in the distance. It was a really strange sensation, but that's a very minor nitpick. Overall, this is a fantastic car. This is spec'd at just around $43,000, and I think that's a great deal, honestly. It looks more expensive than that. I think it performs well its worth. There's a couple quirks here and there, but honestly, I think it's a pretty good value. But let us know what you think. How do you like this car? Based on this review, or maybe you've gone on a test drive, or seen some other reviews, or maybe a friend has an early release model. Are you interested? Would you pick this over a Prius, or a RAV4, or anything else in the competitive lineup? Take care.